We need to get in this discussion bad because people are dying and going to hell because we're not willing to feel that.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome. I make videos challenging assumptions about modern-day witches, pagans, and occultists, and offer counter-arguments when possible. In this video, I'm addressing a man who claims to know about witches today, and after listening to him, it is obvious he has no clue what he is talking about at all. I will be using my own practice as a comparison to his assumptions, so as to have a point of reference. However, not all witches follow my tradition or will necessarily agree with my positions. I am a Gardnerian witch, and I follow what is known as British traditional Wicca. I do not speak for all the Wiccan, nor do I speak for all witches. I am speaking for myself. With that disclaimer out of the way, sit back and prepare to be stunned as this absolute ignorant buffoon tries and fails to educate his audience on modern-day witches and how to speak to them. I hope you enjoy.
As I get into this is not about bashing witches. This is not about bashing people about what they believe.
Oh, I'm so relieved that you will just be talking about who and what witches are. I know you and your kind think we need saving, so it is refreshing to hear that you will not be bashing us. And it is good that you are going to approach this as modern-day witchcraft and not fantasy witches or the mistranslation in your King James Bible. That is fair, as modern-day witches are nothing like fantasy or biblical witches. So far, you are gaining my respect.
If you're a witch that's tuning in or an occultist that's tuning in, and I want to tell you there's hope for that darkness that's out there. You can be set free. Now, I know you might be saying, I don't need to be set free, but something deep down in your heart may be saying, yeah.
I am free. Free from your delusion of a sky daddy and free from unnecessary guilt. You are falling back into these tired old assumptions spread by con men.
Please don't think that I'm trying to put negative light. I want to expose, and that's really what I think we need to understand.
I thought you were not going to bash witches. Saying you were going to expose something is hinting that it is negative. So you are putting modern-day witchcraft in a negative light.
And that you understand where we're coming from as a Christian, why we say what we say. But also we understand that we've got to expose the evil. As I get into this is not about bashing witches and what's going on with this. And we're going to talk more as we go into that about the evil and the darkness.
What evil and what darkness? I understand where you are coming from as a Christian. Rather than understand who and what witches are today, you keep falling back into seeing modern-day witchcraft through the distorted lens of your Bible.
Why do I want to go to the scripture first? We're talking about modern witches. Well, I want to show that witchcraft has purposes, and it's the same as it was back then as it is now.
You are just completely ignoring modern-day witches and going straight to your poorly translated word of Mecca Shapa from the Hebrew to the Greek and finally Latin.
I want to talk very quickly about the witch trials, the witchcraft trials. It's kind of a moot subject today because we have witches that are saying that they're actually producing rituals. And actually, if you go back and read the documentation of the witch trials there in Salem, you'll see the same thing that's happening today. They were real witches.
Not real.
They were astral projecting. They were doing a lot of different things. That's even notated even by some of the witches that's in the trials itself. Go back and actually read the history of these things.
There were no real witches, only innocent people accused of witchcraft. Same as the European witch trials. They were all innocent victims. In Europe, they were tortured into confession. They were tortured into claiming they attended Sabbaths with the devil. These were formed in the imaginations of the witch-finders.
Did produce a lot of wacky stuff. You know why? Because there was a lot of Christians who really didn't understand what they were getting into.
I cannot believe that I'm even having to report this on the news.
They didn't understand how to tell who a real witch was.
You mean they couldn't see which witch was which? I just had to say that. There were no real witches. This moral panic was formed from Christian paranoia and fear driven by ignorance and superstition. Innocent people lost their lives. There were no witches.
So the witch trials actually did have people who done things stupid. I mean, let's be honest. And they were killing innocent people.
Burn the witch! Burn the witch!
Do you smoke?
Burn the witch!
Guess we'll find out soon enough.
Burn the witch! Burn the witch!
Dunking people underwater, and if they drowned, they wasn't a witch. How stupid was that, you know? But yet there was some real witchcraft going on, and it's notated throughout the history of the witch trials.
They did not dunk anyone underwater in the Salem witch trials. Stupid is the least word you could use to describe the mass murder of an estimated 60,000 people across Europe. These innocent people were accused of being witches, and they were tortured into confession. They confessed to whatever they thought their captors wanted them to say. Flying to the Sabbath, kissing the devil on his behind, eating babies, drinking blood, all sorts of bizarre activities, none of which actually happened.
Notable witches. Well, you have the Mother of Darkness group that's there in Belgium, and you just Google covens in your local neighborhood, covens in your local area.
Yep, there are covens throughout most of the world.
Paganism, witchcraft, occultism is rampant today.
You mean gaining in popularity? I think it has been since the beginning of the 19th century. There is so much esoteric knowledge to be found in all the various practices.
Famous people we know. Tom Brady's wife, I think Gazelle, she is, Tom Brady was getting a shave or something, and he started talking about how his wife was doing ritual.
By the gods, just play the tape.
Pats QB also had a lot to say about game time superstitions.
A lot of players stop shaving before a big game. The idea? To focus on winning. And a little superstition as well. But what grows on the face must also come off the face. So Brady said yes to the invitation that benefited the Boys and Girls Club of South Boston, the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and Best Buddies. Brady also talked about pre-Super Bowl superstitions, with the quarterback crediting his wife.
She put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids, and I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones, and she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes, and I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened.
It started out as a discussion about superstitions among football players, namely about shaving before a big game. And he also mentioned superstitions his wife had. Now, whether this was true or exaggerated for the audience is up for question. But many people have superstitions. Does not mean they are witches.
And there's where we start in our teaching about what's modern witchcraft. What is it about? Modern witchcraft is about ritual. It's about summoning. It's about intention. It's about all these different things. Some people don't call themselves a witch. They may call themselves a medium. They may call themselves a seer. All kinds of things they'll call themselves.
Well, for those that do identify as a witch, ritual may be a part of their practice. So is it the practice of many groups, religious or otherwise. Same with summoning and intention.
Madonna, she practiced Kabbalah, and that is a form and type of witchcraft. If you understand the idea there behind Kabbalah and where it comes from, it is not Orthodox Jewish version. In fact, if you go back and read exactly what I just read in Ezekiel, you'll see that Kabbalah is all of what he's speaking against.
People who study witchcraft might include the study of Kabbalah in their own practice, but Kabbalah is not witchcraft. There are also several forms of Kabbalah, and I don't know which one she studies.
And so it's just amazing how many people, even well-meaning people trying to get back into the Hebrew roots stuff, will go to the websites like Chabad or Chadat. I can't even say that word, so I'm not even going to try it. They'll go to these Jewish websites, and if you keep following the links, it actually leads you to occult websites.
I'm sure it does. And you are speaking on this as if this is a bad thing. You continue to denigrate anything related to occultism and witchcraft after making a statement that you're not going to be bashing witchcraft or anyone's beliefs.
As I get into this is not about bashing witches.
So, are you lying now, or were you lying then?
Well, who are they? They can be anybody you know. They can be man or woman, child, teenager. They can be practicing witchcraft. Witchcraft can come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. It has all kinds of paganism to it.
Anyone could be practicing witchcraft. A man, a woman, a child, a baby. Maybe even your pets are practicing the dark arts. Witches could be anybody from any walk of life. Your doctor, your neighbor, your coworker, your boss. The checker at your local grocery store could be a witch. They're everywhere, and you can't escape them.
3 basic levels. The first level is just a very basic level. They can even have a high, profound deficiency for occult knowledge, but they're just a grunt. As I get into this is not about bashing witches. They further the cause, if you will. And it's what many of the higher occultists call the feeder group.
This is literally crazy. Are you insane?
This is the largest, by far the largest group. It can have multiple religions. It can have multiple thoughts of theosophy, anthroposophy, Crowley, Thelema. I mean, it has all those things. It's not just one group. I mean, it's just a huge group of many things, made up of many.
I'm taking notes. 3 basic levels. Basic level can have high proficiency for your occult knowledge. Just a drone. To further the cause, they are the feeder group, huge group made up of many.
This basic group, again, is there to further the beliefs. It's for drug running.
They're there to further the beliefs in drug running? What? You think witchcraft is connected with some pyramid scheme of drug running? Based off what exactly?
The higher groups use these people to, again, run the drugs. This is not about bashing witches, to do the work, to further the cause of occultism. This is where your handlers would be, your programmers. You have programmers and handlers all in this group. If you're dealt with satanic ritual abuse, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. This is not about bashing witches.
You think higher-ups are using witches to run drugs? To further the cause of occultism? You think this group are handlers and programmers? You are absolutely insane. Why in the world would you come to such a fantastical conclusion? I mean, this is bonkers. It's nuts.
It has people who are there to be victimized. This is not about bashing witches and be the victims and do be the perpetrator as well. This has everybody. The next level.
You think witches are there to be victimized and to be perpetrators of what? Does this happen during the drug running or during the handling and programming? I am genuinely curious as to how you came to this insane conclusion. I mean, there must be some impetus behind this conclusion.
They have more esoteric knowledge. They begin to see the true meanings behind the ritual. They're not falling for the lower occultism that tries to say that energy is just energy and there's no spiritual to it. It's just energy. They understand a little bit more of what's going on behind the scenes. They're not as victimized as much as the lower group, but they are still victimized by the higher group.
Do this stupid, you know what?
I would hope people would know the meaning behind a ritual, unless the ritual symbolism is purposely veiled, such as at an initiation. You use the word occultism without elaborating. What do you mean by occultism? And witches are not being abused by higher-ups. It's not the Catholic Church.
And that higher group, very quickly, they know a lot more about the esoteric beliefs. They know a lot more about the ritual. They actually understand the programming behind the programming. They understand the stuff behind, what's behind the motorcycle gangs, what's behind the CIA. And by the way, they're both equal. Some think that they're separate, but they're not.
Wow, you are an absolute loon. Programming? programming behind the programming? CIA and biker gangs are the same thing? None of these things have anything to do with reality, let alone witchcraft.
You know, you start realizing a lot of these things when you start getting in behind those levels of witchcraft. So with these 3 levels, it's important as I go through the rest of this that you remember those 3 levels. You can have a person who is very knowledgeable, even probably a master of ceremonies or whatever, in their lodge, or or they can be higher up and in the Freemasonry and still have not a clue what's going on behind the scenes because they're at that base level. When you get on that higher level, they'll know what's going on.
You sure do like dividing these things into 3s. Well, I haven't attained a Master of Ceremonies degree just yet. And you are also conflating Freemasonry with witchcraft. Those are not interchangeable. Freemasonry is Freemasonry and witchcraft is witchcraft. But that is probably part of your CIA biker gang programming.
In general, witches today can be defined in 3 ways. There are those who, there's someone who actively practices the occult. They practice the occult.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
They get into magic rituals, incantations, whether it be yoga, whether it be Eastern mysticism, Eastern philosophy. I mean, they could be mindful meditation is just as much a part of a ritual as anything else. And I know people try to argue that point all the time with me. You're not going to win that argument with me. I've seen it too many times with people coming out of the occult. They get involved in this mindful meditation. They get involved in this stuff, and they're right back in.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
To the occult. They're right back in to having demons attack. So you got to be careful.
They get into incantations and yoga, Eastern mysticism, Eastern philosophy, mindful meditation.
They deal with herbs, and that's one of the common things we see. We see a lot of, the witches, they talk about, oh, we just give herbs, and that's only half the story. The idea here is they use the herbs and they call and summon spirits to enhance the herb. They call and do ritual over the herbs. So when you go to these herb stores, be careful. A lot of those herbs, they've had done ritual, been done over them. This is not about bashing witches. I know people who work in those stores, and they'll do rituals over their store. They'll do to empower that herb, that plant to heal. They want to call these demons. They want to call these spirits.
They'll do rituals over basil, marjoram, oregano, paprika, cumin, mint, thyme, mustard seed, salt, and pepper.
So there's 2 parts of that. They are doing some kind of an occult activity. Astral travel. Again, I talked about but a lot of the astral travel, you go back into the witch trials, even from the Reformation period, of people talking about seeing apparitions and being astral traveled and all these different things going on, even in the trials and in the court system, they were talking about it. They were talking about the lucid dreaming, even aspects that they had a dream and all these things. If you're not familiar with that, but I believe this group is probably fairly familiar with this. Look up Steve Bancar's.
And right now we're going to go through a list of things that should be burnt, and I recommend burning them.
Ah, yes, good old Stephen Bancaros, another Christian pyromaniac that likes burning things.
He has some great videos on this subject of astral projection and lucid dreaming. It creates a lot of spiritual issues that you cannot just walk away from.
And yet, I have known so many people who have done just that. They walked away from it.
Well, who are they? Some practice occult spells and rituals. We'll get more into that in a moment. Some worship pagan gods or worship a pantheon of gods. I hesitate to say some of these. I won't say all of them. I'll talk about one. Hecate is a huge goddess that they worship. They worship in many forms. She's off the radar. I hardly ever hear anybody, a lot of these circles, talk about it.
I thought you said she was huge. She's off the radar and hardly anybody talks about her? What makes you think she's huge in the witchcraft community? You are contradicting yourself.
The OTO, Freemasonry, if you know anything involvement with those things, obviously the Illuminati, obviously Eastern Star is a big thing in the Freemasonry.
Oh, yeah, the Illuminati, obviously. The OTO, Freemasonry, and Eastern Star are not witchcraft. You keep conflating these things. These things are not interchangeable. I know you are ignorant and think all these things are the same, but they are not.
If you're dealing with someone who's in witchcraft or paganism, they have many different belief systems. Some will call themselves Satanists and some will not. These groups want to distance themselves from the dark, what they call darker side. And they talk about white magic, black magic. A lot of people don't believe that, but it is. You're calling upon spirits. You're not calling upon God Almighty because he said don't do this stuff. He's saying don't call out to these. White magic and black magic, same kind of thing.
Well, I would agree with you there. Magic is just magic. What the practitioner does with it makes it black or white. Various witches have differing views upon this. Witches call themselves witches, and Satanists call themselves Satanists.
Tell me what you're summoning. You know, when you do an incantation, when you do a spell, when you're calling upon the moon, is it just energy or is it a spirit? We want to ask them what they believe, because not every pagan believes the same way. There may be Norse gods, there may be Viking gods, there may be white supremacy gods, there are all these different kinds of things.
It depends on the witch. They work with spirits or not. Viking gods, Norse gods, and white supremacy gods? What the hell are you talking about? There are no white supremacy gods. Wow, you are doing your best to make witches look as bad as possible, even going so far as to make up absolute bullshit.
There's such thing as theistic and non-theistic kind of Satanism, as you know. The same thing kind of applies with witchcraft, and they're very connected to the moon cults. But as you see right here, it's a Google search about ritual and paganism, and you see how they always have the moon. They're in the moon cycles.
There are non-theistic Satanists and theistic Satanists such as yourself. Witches, however, are not defined as theistic or non-theistic. There are atheistic or agnostic witches and pagans, such as myself, who see divinity within us and not some outside force. Every witch will have their own belief around this. Some may be monotheistic, polytheistic, etc.
I think it's interesting, like the Zodiac Killer has some moon cycles there with it. Some of the murders happened on a Thursday before or after a new moon or full moon. This is not about bashing witches. A lot of rituals are done on the full moon. Rituals, what are they? They're calling upon spirits is what they're doing. They're summoning spirits. They may call it energy, they may call it whatever, but it is spirits. And it's not good spirits, it's evil spirits.
The Zodiac Killer was a psychopath. He has nothing to do with witchcraft or the moon cycle. You continue to make these associations hoping that your audience will not make distinctions. This is a very dishonest tactic, and it is blatantly obvious.
I also wanted to show you Gerald Gardner. He was the guy there in England, and he was an English Wiccan. A lot of people get their resources from him.
I didn't edit this out. It is literally all he says about Gardner. Despite all the information out there on Gardner and the other early pioneers of modern witchcraft, he completely ignores this and wants to associate drug running, programming, CIA, biker gangs, white supremacists, and psychotic killers with witches. What a piece of human garbage.
The third type is people who have a spiritual connection. They'll usually talk about, as I said, there's being an empath, a psychic, a medium. They kind of foresee things in the future, or they think. They're calling, just like that girl there in Acts chapter 16, they're depending on demonic spirits of divination for their information. And it's sad. Reiki healers, people who are involved in all kinds of, like I said, Eastern meditation.
Modern day witches are nothing like the character in your Bible under Acts. Wouldn't this be the first group? There are many people who claim to be mediums or psychics who do not call themselves witches.
But see, what's happened is they've fallen for these tricks of Satan. So it's just guided masters. It's just ascended masters. It's just my spirit guide. Oh, they talk wonderful things. Witchcraft is alive and well. We have witchcraft in our communities. We have people calling upon spirits to get rid of our president. Well, I don't care whether you like him or not. You're calling demonic spirits on another person.
Just to mention this again, I am responding from my perspective as a witch. Not all witches will agree with everything I say. I do not believe in your Satan, nor is there any demonstrable evidence that such a being exists. I do not believe in guided or ascended masters, or spirit guides. Casting spells on other people is wrong. I made several videos explaining why I would not be participating in casting a poorly formulated binding spell on our then president, fearing it would do more harm than good.
And when they use this terminology of, vibes, it's just vibes. It's just dark vibes. As long as we stay at a higher vibrational, hertz, and we stay at that level, the darkness can't attach to us. Bull.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Good vibrations or hertz are not common terms I have come across in my various pagan and witch circles. Sounds more like New Age woo-woo to me.
You ever thought about this? You haven't dealt with your sin yet. You see, that's the problem with vibration. You can vibrate and get all kind of energy you want, but you still haven't dealt with the sin that's in your life. They're wanting you to contact and holler out to these ghosts. That's what modern witchcraft is all about. It's calling in. Oh, it's just intention. It's just my will. Sounds like Crowley to me. Crowley says, do what thou will. Now, paganism says a lot of times, or a lot of Wiccans say, do what thou will and harm none. True Satanists and occultists laugh at that because they understand the concept is do what you will.
Crowley's saying of do what thou will in Thelema means following your true will, not do whatever you want. And the Wiccan saying, and ye harm none, do what thou wilt, is a guideline, and emphasis is placed on the and ye harm none part. Many witches do not follow this Wiccan read. I am sure others laugh at this saying, but that is because they read only the literal interpretation. Many occult axioms are not to be read literally. If you want to dance through life assuming your actions have no consequences, that is your right, but it is demonstrably untrue.
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to make a point here. This is not about bashing witches. They do ritual for several reasons. If they're summoning the dark ones, they're summoning these powers. Where are they coming from? Rituals are summoning power to them to gain power for themselves or gain power over others.
Gain power over myself? Absolutely. Gain power over others? Absolutely not. That, in my opinion, would be breaking the Wiccan read.
So when you have a person who's involved in witchcraft, oftentimes they were first sexually abused. They were first, a lot of times as a child, as a teenager, they had someone do a ritual over top of them, on them, whether it's a sex act or some type of self-harm or some type of blood ritual or water ritual. As we talked about last time, this is not about bashing witches.
I see you prescribe to the satanic panic school of imaginary bullshit. Sex acts are not performed on children in witch circles. You are thinking of the Catholic Church.
And so they get these demonic influences in their life, these attachments. Somebody says to me about Freemasonry, when you go in that first step and you swear not to tell these secrets and that, you're calling upon a particular name, and I'm not going to say that name, as your allegiance. You're not talking to Christ, are you?
I'm not a Freemason, but from what I have come to understand, during an initiation, your holy book would be used and you would refer to your God. Freemasonry does not tell you who to worship, but most, if not all, members are theists. Freemasonry is not a religion, but its members are religious. And I thought this was a video about modern-day witches, not Freemasons.
You see, when they're doing a ritual, they're calling out. They're summoning these demons. They're putting in these initiation rituals, you're gaining demonic entities as attachments. You know, in these rituals, sometimes they'll do a circle. A lot of times it's not the pentagram, it's some of the other circles that they have. Pentagram's just one out of many. And they'll draw these circles, and they'll have the beginning level, the basic level person step outside that circle, and they'll do these incantations, and they'll try to say that they can pull this demon into this circle. It's kind of laughable if you think about it, because that demon can go outside that circle, but they say they can't.
I have no idea what you are talking about with the initiates being outside a circle. This is more fear-mongering. And any non-Christian deity would be considered demonic in your eyes. But these deities predate the arrival of the Christian plague. Or missionaries.
You see, there's a lie coming right here, and they know it. So they tell that initiate to stay outside that circle, and that initiate calls in that demonic entity. And that demonic entity shows up. And then that initiate is told that if they wipe away part of that circle, that entity will then come into them and help them and give them power, give them glory, give them money, give them power over people, give them influence and control. It may do that, but it also will destroy your life. It will be your master from that point on. See, it's foolish to think that demon can't get out of that circle. It could get out of that circle at any time. It's the initiation. It's the intention of wiping away that circle.
What are we in junior high school? What the hell? What is this?
Modern witches, that's what they do. They summon, they call. As I said a few moments ago, they're usually at a young age. They have demonic entities placed in their life. Then they turn around and they do more. They're actually starting to do the rituals over other people.
Like what? What?
And with other people. They do it as a group. That's why they have a coven as a coven. A lot of witchcraft and paganism is done individually. You don't need a whole lot of people. When you go back and study Crowley at his house there in Loch Ness, he bought that house to do specific rituals to get a hold of the Enochian type system. He invited people over many times that were part of those rituals. And I often think about those people and how their life fared out. Several that he used ended up killing themselves and all kinds of things. You see, it always goes back to Crowley, Helena Blavatsky, occultism.
The Abramelin is not part of the Enochian system, and no one who visited Crowley at Boleskine House committed suicide. Your ignorance and blatant attempts to disparage Crowley are more transparent than your attempts at smearing modern-day witches.
And by the way, I'm going to show you just some very basic ritual stuff, so please bear with me. This is some candle wax on a board, and this is a place local next to me that I've got this. This is a ritual site. This was the tree. Notice the water in the background. This is a place where I find a lot of ritual activity. Find a lot of stuff around this base of this tree and also on the board. The board there has some she shells and stuff on it. I don't think that was part of the ritual, but it could have been. I know there's some rituals with it. You can't see it in this picture, but there's there's some little water sprout branches coming at the bottom of that tree. They have bells around those tree limbs. I know what kind of ritual this was. Theirs was an actual ritual place. Again, notice the water, the background. I have seen some blood at the bottom of that tree, so there was some blood ritual there as well.
I don't see any blood stains. If you found blood at the base of that tree, why didn't you photograph it? And did you notify the local police? Seems like something that would have been important to do. That is, assuming you are not just lying about this. And candle wax on a board does not mean a ritual took place. And if they do use it as a ritual site near water, then seashells would be an appropriate altar decoration.
Wiccan paganism has gotten mainstream. There's a picture of a military. It's sad. The military they can do military chaplains now.
It is only fair. If witches and pagans are going to risk their life for our country, then they should have access to religious services just like any other Christian denomination. The fact that people like Selena Fox, the wife of deceased airman Patrick Stewart, and Circle Sanctuary had to fight and eventually win a court order to have Wiccan gravestone markers is proof of the bias minority religions have struggled against. It is not sad. It is fantastic to have equal treatment under our First Amendment, as our forefathers intended.
Be ready to deal with the programming issues, and I don't have time to go in with all this. 9 times out of 10, I'm learning this myself. There will always be some type of occult program there. They may not be a CIA assassin, but they'll have some type of programming, whether it be how to do a ritual or how to do some kind of murder or some kind of drug. Or
This is crazy.
Sex act or whatever. They'll know. They'll have these alter and these different personalities that will do that.
I'm fairly certain this is what he has heard from other people, and he is just parroting others' beliefs about witches. It is really not surprising that people like this ignorant buffoon believe we are CIA-programmed operatives that control drug running and assassinations. And on our off hours, we are tricking people into becoming demon-possessed via rituals. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, my friends, I will see you in hell, you heathens.
How to do some kind of murder or some kind of drug or sex act or whatever. They'll know. They'll have these alter and these different personalities that will do that. Take time to listen and pray with them. I've found that is by far